Echoes of the House is an indie horror game that follows Christopher as he visits his grandmother at her house in the countryside. However, something isn't right, and very quickly the situation is going to devolve. And the psychological madness that unfolds is definitely worth your time, and the ending carries some deeply unsettling implications. I'll do my best to piece together the clues and explain what I think happened and why. Now, this definitely was not what I was expecting when I picked up this game. I was hoping for something short and sweet, cozy, a nice little horror experience. But with that being said, if you do like horror games and grandmas, maybe hit that like and subscribe button. I mainly do psychoanalysis on video game characters and story explained videos. And before we begin, a quick heads up, this game does deal with sensitive themes related to mental health, including loss, SI, and trauma. I imagine these topics, especially SI, which is the main theme in this game, can be painful. There's also going to be spoilers ahead, so please proceed with caution. Our story begins with Christopher arriving late night at his grandmother's house. The atmosphere is eerie, echoing memories of his past. Entering the unlocked house, we take a moment to notice the pictures of Chris's grandparents, with his grandfather notably absent. Catching up with his grandmother in the living room, Chris explains that he visited because she hadn't been answering her phone and he was worried. Seeming rather distracted, she responds by saying she misses her husband. Chris offers to make her a cup of tea, and turning off the TV, because too much TV isn't good for you, he heads to the kitchen. On the table, he finds a newsletter containing a concerning report. A 32-year-old patient with a rare form of dementia has escaped from a psychiatric hospital. The article mentions that he was under constant medical supervision but somehow vanished. So I guess he wasn't actually under constant supervision then. The newsletter shows an image of a broken window suggesting how he might have escaped. The article also notes that he may not fully understand his surroundings. For those of you who are unfamiliar, dementia is a neurological condition that causes memory loss, to literally getting lost, confusion, even in familiar places, and sometimes hallucinations. Having one's reality reshaped is unsettling, and it's a deeply distressing experience for all parties involved, for those affected, and for their loved ones. Having seen my own great-grandmother live with dementia, I understand the toll that it can take. But I digress. With the kettle out of water and the sink not working, we go to the well out back to fetch some old and moldy water. How does his grandmother drink water if there's no water in the house? As we turn around, right outside the front door, one of the rocking chairs is swaying by itself. Not questioning it, we wait for the kettle to boil the water, and while that happens, we hear footsteps. Then we see a hand popping out to tap on the window. Christopher doesn't comment on any of these things that he's seeing, not even a yelp from being scared. He just continues as if it's not even there. When we bring Grandma the tea, she takes a while to respond.
Grandma? Hello?
That fast? It smells delicious.
She talks about the pains of growing old and how all she does now is stare at old photos, which gives Christopher the idea to go to the car and get the camera from the trunk. But the camera isn't the only thing back there. There are quite a bit of medical supplies spread about as if they were recently used. Cleaning alcohol, bandages and wraps, band-aids and pain meds, things you would need if you were injured by getting cut by shards of glass. Strange occurrences start happening. We hear footsteps again, running away from behind us. Grandpa is no longer in the pictures hanging on the wall, and when we take a picture of Grandma...
What the hell?
Trying to catch whomever is outside, we only find a flickering lamp lying on the ground before we hear Grandpa's typewriter making a dinging sound. Upon further investigation, there's a note on the desk, and when we decipher it by spelling out all the capitalized letters, we take a picture of the paper. The piece of paper reveals a map, and it's clear we need to dig something up by a tree. Needing a shovel, we ask around the neighborhood, but the neighbors clearly want nothing to do with Chris, After lying about needing to bury our cat, one of our neighbors lets us use his shovel. We dig up a lighter, and then dig even further to unearth a rusty 6-shooter. So Chris instantly recognizes the revolver, stating it's the one that, and the note for the revolver reveals that it's only been used once, and that nobody found it, except for Chris.
It's the one that... What the... Return.
I guess we found out where Grandpa from the pictures on the wall went. Moving forward, Chris hides in a corner as he begins to hear things and his vision begins to blur before all the lights shut off. Trying to get the power back on, we first need to get the key to the back. And also, now the pictures on the wall have Grandma missing. Turning on the generator, we find Grandma again, just sitting on the couch unfazed. She asks us where we went for so long, and then she begins to reminisce on the memories of her late husband, sharing that everything was peaceful and happy, that they were in love, but yet sometimes she could see a sadness in his eyes. She vividly recalls one evening where everything changed, where something important slipped away. She says that Grandpa is still with her after all this time, just lost in time. Just then, the TV loses signal, and after climbing up on the roof to fix it, we come back inside, barricade the doors, and go to sleep for a while. And yet, it is short-lived because we are awoken with a banging noise. The barricaded door is wide open and one of the pictures is missing from the wall. Heading outside to investigate, we end up hearing 2 loud gunshots and flashes coming from the inside of the house. So when we go inside to investigate, we find the missing picture on the couch. Now this is the same picture that was hanging on the wall, which we saw in the beginning, but something is different here. Grandpa is wearing different clothes and looks younger. However, Grandma's still the same. Chris remarks at seeing this picture, and the note on the screen reveals Glenda and I. Picking up the record CD, we head over to the record player nearby and start playing it. But as soon as we do, it's as if Christopher was shot. When he wakes up, he goes into the living room to find his grandma, but it's her younger version. And he doesn't call her grandma, he calls her
Glenda.
She addresses us as Chris, which tracks. However, the ensuing dialogue that follows can get a bit confusing as it uncovers a few disturbing things. You see, Glenda says that she was happy with the life that they had until one day, Chris gave her a look he had never given her before. Glenda, unable to process everything, didn't notice that Chris had something in his hand.
Time seemed to stop for a moment, and everything became so quiet. Too quiet. If I could go back to that moment, maybe I'd understand what you were feeling. But now, it's too late, isn't it?
I am really...
Waking up outside, car missing, we see that the inside of the house is now empty. Everything is packed up. The rusted gun, a wedding ring, and a bottle of wine are on the table. Noticing the blood on the floor spilling underneath from the office, Glenda's voice echoes, stating that they are only shadows and echoes now, trapped in the house. Their former selves lost in time. She urges Chris to leave before he fades with her as well. Grabbing the torch, we head outside to follow our wife into the dark. As we walk deeper in, we hear beeping noises, the same ones that you would hear in a hospital for a patient in intensive care. Now Chris says he can't do this, that he needs to get out. Backtracking towards the house, he sees a red car pull up.
What the... Fuck.
Now, I might be wrong or missing something, however, I theorize what ended up happening is that Glenda and Christopher one day moved into this house. They were happy together, but Chris had some mental issues with which he was struggling, and at 32 years old, he shoots himself in the head. But he doesn't die. Instead, his brain suffers from traumatization, and Chris is sent into psychiatric care at the hospital. The brain damage causes him to develop a rare case of dementia at his relatively young age. And yes, survivors of self-ending attempts with that brain damage can develop dementia. Also, I'm saying 32 because the newspaper says 32. However, I'm convinced that Chris is the escapee from the hospital, and his dementia is affecting him further, shaping his reality and causing confusion. On a psychological level, his brain is trying to protect him while also trying to heal him. It's extremely complex. But I think Chris is at his old house, imagining his wife is still there, and he's probably going around the entire place, hallucinating that everything looks normal for the most part, when really it's probably run down and has been empty for decades. His brain is just doing the best it can to protect Chris. But Glenda is now dead. I'm assuming that the event shattered her in ways that words just can't describe, and it plunged her into a deep and depressive state. I cannot imagine what that's like, to have somebody you love just be gone one day, leaving you and your home an empty husk. Glenda died, sad and alone in that house. I think her spirit still wanders there. Or maybe I'm wrong, and Chris is just stuck in a time loop, just like Grandma said earlier. But then again, the time loop could also be explained with his dementia. The final message at the end is a quote by Jaroslav Žeribor, who is the game designer or one of them at Sword Art Studios, the developer of this game. It says, "A person can wander through a room they've known all their life, where every corner once whispered familiarity, but now holds only shadows, echoes of memories that slipped away, leaving behind the ghost of who they used to be." To me, when I read this, two things come to mind. The phrase, echoes of the past, the concept that as you grow up, the words spoken sink into the walls of your home and stay there, giving their houses meaning. And I guess that's why so many people have sentimental values for their homes. It's their memories, and the memories of all the ones they loved and grew up with. The quote also has me thinking that sometimes you never really know somebody. Unfortunately, you might think you know and fully believe you know somebody inside and out, but sometimes that special somebody might do something out of character, something unbelievable, unrecognizable. It could leave you saying something like, "I didn't know. I don't know why they did it. They looked happy. I thought I knew them." Familiarity turned to shadow. It's sad and unfortunate. But I don't want to leave you guys on a low note. Best I can do for anybody listening or still watching is to tell you that I'm sending you guys positive vibes your way if you're needing that. And for your loved ones, go tell them that you love them again. Hug them just a little tighter. Let them know that you're there for them. I'm going to say something because I think the message is important to get out there. I feel like it's important to say these words if we really want to address the situations and deal with them head on. I feel like skirting around them. And the reason I do that is because YouTube could get mad at me, and I'm trying not to get in trouble with YouTube. But I just want to say that for anybody who has lost somebody due to suicide, it's not your fault. Do not live in regret. I have a good idea of what you're going through because I lost quite a few people myself, especially when I was in the military, due to suicide. People I worked with on a daily basis for years, people I knew, hung out with. I met their families, their wives, husbands, their daughters and sons. So many experiences, and then they just ended it. So I went through a bit of struggle and disbelief each time, wondering if I could have done more, that maybe I should have paid more attention. And listen, it's not you, all right? The best we can do is be a family member, a friend, give them reasons to stay, and give them support. I'm going to link resources down below to help for suicide prevention. There's going to be links and phone numbers that you guys can call or text. Professional help is there. Now, go ahead, hug your loved ones 5 seconds longer and 5 times harder than you ever have before. I'll see you guys on the next video.